Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie, and in today's video we are continuing our mini Halloween zoo by adding the Nine-banded Armadillo. That's right, this is going to be our next of the nocturnal animals we're adding to the zoo, and it's quite a cute one. I'm very excited to introduce them. Now what I'm doing is I'm digging a big hole in the ground, which is going to be their habitat. It's going to be a kind of recessed habitat, and then I'm going to use some of the concrete stone kind of blocky pieces, the wall pieces from the Twilight pack, to create the perimeter of this habitat. And straight away I'm going to ask for some comments down below, and that is because I have no idea what to call this zoo. Originally it was just going to be a Halloween zoo, but it is becoming a bit more themed than that even. It's going to be a kind of abandoned village that obviously has spooky aspects to it, but I'm going to try and create an actual village because this habitat did just start out as this round habitat that's kind of recessed into the ground, but when it came to thinking about how to add a shelter for the animals and stuff, I ended up adding an entire house, and it ended up looking like someone's home, and the garden had been kind of left and had become disheveled, and these little armadillos had taken up residence in it. So I think that's kind of the path I'm going to take for this zoo, to have them be buildings that could have a real world function in a small little village, and then they've got a garden or some kind of allotment or something attached to it where the animals now live. So let me know in the comments down below what you think I should do name wise for this mini Halloween zoo. Now what we're going to do next is add that house that I just spoke about. And I go through the blueprints that we got available for the Twilight pack. I did consider just making stuff, but this is a mini zoo. I want to get this done in the month of October. And if I spend hours building every single house, like I did with that church, then I'm never going to get it finished. So every now and then, I'm going to allow myself to use some of the blueprints. There is nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to take the large keeper hut and place it at the side of this habitat. And then I'm going to go inside the keeper hut and remove the actual, well, the keeper building, so that all that is left is the shell of this building. I'm then going to delete a few bits and replace them to make it look like there is a hole in the foundation of this building, and that is where the armadillos will be able to get in and out, making sure they can sleep inside, and having, well, it kind of makes this building look quite aged, which is also cool. And as we are using the mason work wall pieces from the Twilight pack as our main barrier for this habitat, that means we are not using any of the pre-made barriers, so we're going to have to register this as a habitat by running a null barrier around it as well. If you are enjoying the video so far and are not already, then please consider subscribing to the channel. It is of course free for you. It means you get my videos appearing in your subscription feed absolutely free, and well, I'll feel like I have more friends, which is always a bonus. So thank you, and let's get back to the build. For the interior of this habitat, I end up using quite a lot of soil and sand, and it just looks really quite dry. I'm also going to put in a bunch of rocks because this slope near their entryway for their little house is far too steep and I won't be able to get down. So I'm going to sink in some rocks into the ground in various levels to create kind of a cascading waterfall of rocks where the armadillos can walk down and enjoy the main part of their enclosure, and it also just adds a bit of texture to this habitat, making it look a lot nicer pretty quickly. So with the soil and the sand and these rocks, we have a very dry looking environment, and that leads me to do something that I didn't exactly expect to do, and that is to make kind of an abandoned orchard theme to this habitat. That means a lot of dead trees, a lot of wood, and initially I did experiment with putting down some cacti and stuff because I was just excited to use them, because none of the animals I've used in my zoos before allowed me to use cacti. But unfortunately it just does not fit the vibe of this habitat. They are too vibrant compared to these desaturated colours that we've got going on. We've got a lot of dead plant life, these really bright greens that are quite tall. They just don't fit as well as I wanted them to. So we do end up getting rid of all those, but we heavily lean into the kind of scrub plant life instead. So that means a whole load of brambles and quite short bushes, things that are kept quite low to the ground, and we're also going to use quite a bit of buffalo grass as well. I do want some grass in this habitat to suggest that there is the possibility of sustaining life in here. That's why we have got some bushes and stuff growing. And the reason that I go for buffalo grass rather than using the grass brush is just because I much prefer the look of it. The long grass brush I just really don't like. It just looks so fake. Whereas the buffalo grass sunk ever so slightly into the ground looks perfect. When it is placed directly on the ground, it looks too thick for my liking, but if you sink it, it can look really nice. It looks very patchy, which is exactly what I want. And after we've placed some more of that kind of ground covering, we're going to place a few more bushes. We're making sure that we've got a variety in terms of the sizes of them and stuff, because that is how best to mimic nature. Randomness, variety is the key to making something look natural. I'm also going to use the exterior of the building to my advantage as well, and we're going to use some Virginia creeper, and we're going to have that sprawling across that back wall just to suggest that this place is really quite overgrown. Obviously the orchard area itself doesn't look as much overgrown. It looks messy, but it looks fairly dead. But we're going to have stuff growing over the building as well, just to kind of immerse us in that really creepy feeling. We're also using those massive branches from the big creepy tree that we got from the Twilight Pack as well, because they look excellent as just dried, dead trees. They don't need to be branches. If you just stick them in the ground, they look like gnarled trees instead, and that is perfect for this build. As our keeper is not going to be able to access the outside portion of this habitat, we need to make sure that our food items are located inside. So that is going to be the little food bowl, one of the food enrichment items, and we're also going to place the water bowl in here with a bunch of bedding and stuff, because that is where the keeper can get to. And as long as they can access even the smallest portion of the habitat like this, they can actually clean the entire thing. So we don't have to worry about cleanliness. All the keeper needs to be able to do is locate and get to the food items. Something that I really want to make sure I do with this zoo is blend all of my habitats into the surroundings and make it look organic and like it is actually happening. So something I'm going to focus on after adding all of the enrichment items and stuff is to blend in the surroundings by placing, initially I'm going to place some little piles of pebbles from the aquatic faux rock set, and we're going to put those around the perimeter of the wall to make it look like it's kind of crumbled over time, as if though the wall was taller at one point or something. And then we're going to go over to our skunks and select them and get up all the plants that they can use. And the reason for that is because I really like the set of plants that they can use, and I think it is really appropriate for our zoo. So that is going to be the main theming plant-wise for the outside areas of our zoo. So I'm going to just place a load of random plants and stuff around this habitat as well, to further blend it into the surrounding environment. Now, we really do struggle with money in this episode. You can see right now I am almost out of money, and by the time I have placed a bunch of these rocks, we do run out. So we end up taking out quite a few loans and stuff, and one way that we're going to combat that is by adding a shop. We're going to use, again, a blueprint from the Twilight Pack, and we're going to just put in a coffee shop and Bernie's Bakes, because I feel like those are quite appropriate. They're quite cozy themed restaurant and drink places, so I think they're going to fit in with this spooky zoo pretty well. For now, I think I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. We're going to watch some stuff. Floki's going to tell you a fact of the day about the Nine-banded Armadillo, and then I'll come back to talk a little bit more in a minute. Now, before we move on to our cinematics, there were two little creative things that I wish to speak about. And just before we get onto that, you may have noticed a minute ago I placed a little stone statue, and that is a hint at an animal to come in this zoo in the future. Now, what I'm doing right here is I am trying to light this habitat. As I said in my previous video, I really want to make sure that I'm paying attention to how this zoo looks at night for a change. So I thought it'd be really cool to add some of these lanterns and just hang them off the trees in the habitat. Just a way of making sure that this habitat looks super spooky at night by having it lit quite ominously from above inside. I also make sure to plaster the walls with various candles and pumpkins. I don't know whose job it is to go around and light all the candles in this zoo, but already there are like 30, so it's going to be a very annoying job every single day. It's kind of impractical, but I like it. The second of these creative things that I'm going to do is to create some signs for our habitats. And to do that, I am using the New World signs that you can edit and write your own things on them. I'm going to begin with, I experiment with just sinking it into the wall and having the text be on top of the surface of the wall. And all it's going to say is the animal that is within the habitat. And I end up going with the Pirata font because it looks proper like old English and creepy, which is very appropriate for what we're doing. I'm going to make the text itself black and then give it a white outline to really help it stand out. It is really quite difficult to make sure that it lines up perfectly to have the text be showing on top of the surface. You need to sink it in literally like by the pixel, I think, and just make sure that the text is the only thing that shows through. I'm also going to use the rather illustrative signs that we get from these DLCs and have the animals be next to the signs as well. It's at this point that I decided that it didn't look too great on the wall. So what I'm going to do is use some of the wooden planks from the Twilight Pack, and these are some of my favourite building pieces that we have on Console Edition at the moment. I'm just going to create a basic rectangle with them and then sink that metallic sign into this instead so that the text looks like it's been written on there or painted or something, and then we can attach this to our habitat walls instead and have those illustrative signs, the images of the animals, right next to these on the wall, making sure that it's appropriate for whatever animal is in the habitat. I'm also going to make it for the skunk as well, so it's just a matter of copy and pasting it over to that habitat. And all I need to do is remember to use this with every habitat going forward as just an extra piece of theming for this zoo. It's just going to make it look a bit more cohesive by having a kind of a signage theme, something that shows up on every habitat. It just helps to tie them all together and make it look like it is a space that exists. And with these signs done, we are about done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Now sit back and relax whilst we have a look at the cinematic views. But just before we do that, actually, let's take a little look at where the zoo started today and where we are now. I think we're making some pretty good progress, and I look forward to building even more in this mini zoo. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.